Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the webinar series of Burjeel Geojit Financial Services, which we have been doing in the from the last year. And in particular, in the last month, we have done two such sessions, and this is the third such session because we do understand that the market participants, whether he's an investor or uh, or, or the people who are bringing in money from abroad or from India, there is always a concern in terms of what is happening in the markets today in terms of the second wave of corona that we are seeing today. So it is in this regard that we have been having these periodic meetings to get different perspectives on the market. I'm sure all of you are looking at the media news and in terms of what is happening, and we are seeing really worrying sort of a situation, especially when it comes to the health of the large population that is there. And of course, many of the states have also started sort of a lockdown or getting into a lockdown mode. But this time around, it is much different from what we saw last year, where it was a total lockdown, which was bringing the economy to a sort of a total standstill. And we had a number of issues that we have addressed. So today, at least, that is getting phased out. And apart from what is happening in the ground in terms of the health situation of the people, it's also important for us to understand how the economic activity in the country is getting going forward in this sort of a situation, and what is going to be the outlook for that. Of course, there are looking at some of the trends that are coming in. We have had at least after a year of great inflows into the market from the foreign institutions, we are seeing a sort of a small dip that is happening. The GDP numbers are getting revised slightly downwards from what we anticipated from in the month of April onwards. There's also talks about the current account deficit can come in and it can also have an impact in the coming year. Oil prices have also moved up considerably from the last few months that we have been talking about. So there are a lot of situations that are happening not only within the country but outside the macroeconomic space as well, which is going to have an impact. And to in order to give us a perspective and an understanding of the markets and where the markets will be heading. Of course, from as investment advisors, we are fairly hopeful and confident that things will revive and we should have better days ahead in the coming months and quarters. In order to do that, we are extremely delighted to have with us Mr. Sailesh Rajban, Deputy CIO Equity of Nippon India Mutual Fund. Thank you, Mr. Sailesh, for
Thank you.
taking your time off and being with us today to talk to our investors and clients today. Uh, Mr. Ban is a great friend of Burjeel Geojit, and he has been talking to us in multiple investor meetings. He has addressed physical meetings here. And if you remember last April, towards the end of last April, we also had a session with him where I must congratulate Mr. Ban that almost everything that you said turned out to be in the right direction, or in fact, it did much better than that. So we look forward to hear your perspective from an investment manager perspective, and also to talk to our investors to understand what they should be doing. Because I think the moment when they see something like this, the top of the mind thought that comes is, what is going to the market? Are we going to see a sort of March 2020 sort of an event happening, or is it something that we should be guarded against, and what should we be doing? We have also seen a good investor pullback in the last 1 year, where many investors have participated in the rally last year and have reaped the benefits so far. So given all these circumstances, I think we look forward to hear you. And just to give a brief introduction for Mr. Sailesh Ban, Mr. Sailesh has been in the Indian equity markets space for more than a quarter of century, and he's been with the Nippon India Fund, or Reliance Mutual Fund as it was known earlier, for the last 15 years. He's managing a diversified segment of funds. To name a few: the multi-cap fund, the large cap fund, the pharma sector fund, the consumption fund. So he's got his hands in multiple areas of fund management, and I think we will be very happy to hear your perspective. He also advises the international mandates of Nippon India Mutual Funds. The one thing that we need to appreciate is that consumer confidence and industrial confidence is still not as bad as what we thought. We are looking at a reasonable monsoon as well this year, and the last year also has been good. So given all this background, I think we need to take a sort of a constructive or a positive view. So to get a perspective and understand where we stand today and what we can expect for the future, I would now request Mr. Sailesh to take over. And before that, just a few housekeeping rules. I would request all of you to please put your question and answers only on the Q&A box that is there available in your Zoom webinar screen, and we will try and consolidate and take a few questions after Mr. Bond finish. I also take this opportunity to invite to welcome our investors from Muscat and Kuwait who have joined us for this session today. So with this, I hand over the session to Mr. Sailesh. Mr. Sailesh.
Thank you very much, and very good morning to you all. Thanks for joining in. It's always been a pleasure over the years interacting with you and your team. And obviously, the perspectives we also get by interacting from people looking at India from a slight distance. It's not that far, but from a slight distance, also does presents us to allow us to share our ideas, even more in a context of what's currently happening. Why this is important is rightly so what a lot of people are seeing India is through the foreign press or to the press which is there today. But I'll take you through all those aspects as well and other relevant opportunities from a point of view of how the economic activity in India today is and how it is shaping up. I also understand that there are 3 or 4 major questions which everybody would have at the back of their minds today when you interact with within your colleagues and friends, when you interact with your family. I'm sure there are things which come to you which prevent you from taking or make it difficult for you to take decisions given the noise around it. I'll just try to clarify or attempt to address some of those. So let me take the most important question which all of us have at the back of our minds today. Why are the markets rallying when there is a healthcare problem in India? Right? I think this is one which is there at the top of your mind. Let me just explain why this is happening, at least what we get a sense of it. How are we operating in the current environment where at one level you've had some healthcare challenges, but at the other level there has been continuity of economic activity in many pockets, unlike the last time. So I'll just differentiate on what's happened in the first lockdown, what's happening today, and what it means for investors looking at investing in India. So let me start off with this question, because once this is set aside, I can take you through what is the medium-term opportunity which India presents. So let's take this first question, primarily coming from a fact that whatever you're reading in the media, there talks about a significantly large scale of infection, 4 lakh cases daily, and significant impact on the healthcare infrastructure in India. The fact is clear. Yes, there has been more than this virus strain has been far more virulent than a lot of people predicted. No model predicted this kind of a scale up and ramp up, because in a very short period of time, the number of cases really went through the roof. A few cities like Bombay and all did reasonably well to lock down early and have contained it. In fact, now to start off with some good news in the system, daily caseload of 10,000 in Bombay is now down to 2,200 to 2,500 to 3,000 range for the last 7 days, which means that there is a process or there is a method which can contain the virus using a combination of lockdown and social distancing measures, and possibly the real solution is vaccination. I would just want to bring this parallel to what has happened in Delhi as well, because you would want this to be understood in the context of what you have been reading there. I think the problem was that the lockdown implementation there did not happen, or happened with a delay of 10 or 15 days, which I think has led to uncontrollable or very large number of cases, which is going through its cycle also. So normally, if you do a lockdown like Delhi did about 2 weeks back and Bombay did about 4 weeks back, the cases drop to 1/4 in a matter of that 1 month or 15-day period, 1 month or 4 to 5 week period. And I think we will be entering that 4 to 5 week period for Delhi in the next maybe about a week or so, or 2 weeks or so. So I think we are, in some cities, we have already peaked in terms of cases like Bombay and Delhi. And in some cities, we are possibly in early stages. And a lot of governments have now realized that select localized lockdowns are important to contain the spread, which I think is real solid common sense supporting this way to fight it. And healthcare infrastructure efforts are up everywhere to increase. And today, you're finding a lot of states now building up capacities very, very quickly. Coming to the point of the differences between the first and the second lockdown. First lockdown, India went through an extreme strict measure. They just shut down the economy completely, which actually created other ancillary problems. People were not prepared. There were migrant challenges. There were a significant lack of certainty. Supply chains broke down, and we created. In fact, we lost 25% of our GDP growth, GDP itself in that quarter, in a year-on-year basis, which I think is a very large number. And this was self-inflicted in the context that we didn't do the calibrated lockdown, which we are doing today, which have been very beneficial, or which are far better and far good at managing both economic and human issues. So I think we are possibly in the next 3 or 4 weeks looking at peaking of cases and coming down, which should help in terms of controlling the healthcare infrastructure issues. Already, as we speak, Bombay is in far better shape. Other cities will follow with a lag of 3 weeks or thereabouts, because that is what has been the lag in terms of the cycle of the virus spread. And as vaccination also starts accelerating in the next 15 days to a month, I think you will start some support coming through in terms of making larger sections of the population, or at least more infected sections or more challenged sections like the urban side, possibly accepting vaccinations faster and reducing the effect of it. Like you said, like you see in every other part. So markets also realize that yes, it is a problem, but the problem seems to be when they start looking 6 months out from here, the problem seems to be getting over by that point of time very comfortably, because of a process of all the medical infrastructure being set up, selective lockdowns happening, maybe vaccination accelerating from where we stand today. We would have done 16 crore, 17 crore doses till now. And maybe every month, if we do about 10 crore, 12 crore doses, I think it's a matter of 3, 4, 5 months where we'll have about 20, 30% of India vaccinated, which is a very large chunk if it is done significantly in urban or highly infected areas. We think all this news of existing now capacity coming on stream for vaccines in the next 1.5 months, that is one point which people have, the investors have looked at as a fact that wherever vaccination has been done, the fatalities, and there has been a very sharp drop, whether if you see whether it's UK, whether it's US, where vaccination levels are pretty significant now, you're finding way difference in terms of how economic activity is coming back. In fact, globally, there is a very, very strong comeback of growth. In fact, if you see reported numbers of US companies, you can't imagine how large size companies are now reporting strong earning growth, and way stronger in the sense revenues are growing 30% and all. So the investors who are looking at participating in India and Indian investors are seeing beyond the next 3-6 months how this economic activity will look like. And we have seen everywhere there is a real surge or rebound in opening up. And I think we could have a similar kind of a swing in India's economic growth. In fact, FY22 was likely to be a much higher GDP growth year. We think after a quarter or so, we should come back to similar expectations. Maybe this quarter you might lose a little bit of growth, but I think we'll come back to reasonably strong growth. Today, generally, manufacturing activity and all that is allowed to sustain. Exports are allowed to continue. In fact, exports are booming, right? And with global growth recovering, I think exports will be one more big story for India for the next 2-3 years, which was actually a weak point for India for the last several years, because there was significant degrowth or slowing down in export because of the weak global growth. So we are finding many factors which were not in favor from a macroeconomic condition point of view, supporting, notwithstanding the challenges in terms of the near term, which are there from a healthcare point of view, which the country and the country's infrastructure today is struggling to handle. So from an economic point of view, we see it very differently from a healthcare point of view, at least when you look at investing from an equity markets point of view, because markets start looking 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years ahead. And when you look at that picture, these 4 or 5 important things come to our mind. First, earnings can accelerate and can accelerate rapidly, because we have had a long base of very, very poor earnings in India, especially in many sectors. Second point, most sectors which were not doing well in the last 3-4 years have started to now deliver. Global growth sectors like pharmaceuticals, IT services, engineering, exports, all of them have started to fire, right? In fact, if you look at it, how growth has come back to many of these spaces. In fact, the best way to look at it is what is happening, say, when we last spoke in April and May, you would have realized last time around that there were only 2 or 3 sectors contributing to growth in India. After that, pharmaceuticals started contributing massively. IT services started contributing massively. domestic cyclical started to improve because there was a rebound in industrial activity. Then lastly, you could see metals and all supported by a huge surge in global prices starting to deliver extremely high profitability, because there are companies today. In fact, when we spoke last time, we talked about this distressed valuations and COVID damaged companies, right? Which included businesses which were out of favor, like metals and commodities and all. If you just look back and see some of those companies on what earnings they will report next year, were actually valued at 1 PE multiple last year, right? And even after rising 4-5 times, people are finding those businesses attractive from a medium-term point of view. So what I'm just trying to present is there is always versus 1 or 2 sectors working for the last 3-4 years and a very narrow market. Today, we are having a very broad market with many sectors performing. Financials are still doing okay. Pharmaceuticals are doing well. IT services are doing well. Metals are doing well, which are larger chunks of profits. Companies in metals, for example, as a combined segment, can actually report some, 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh crore more profit than what they reported last year or even for the last 5-7 years. Because in lot of periods of time, they were only in losses and hardly reporting profits, or they were at the margin profitable. Today, you're finding big swings in profits. And hence, our underlying framework and belief is the winners of the next 2 or 3 years, again, will be very different from the winners of the last 3 years. And the trend which has started, say, 6-9 months back in select sectors doing exceedingly well, I think that seems to be a visible directional trend for the next 2 or 3 years. So hence the opportunity for investors and everyone to create differentiated portfolios exists in this market. It is not like the market of the past where only 2 sectors of any PE multiple were growing. But today, if you're paying, you can pay reasonable prices and still get good growth available. Utilities as a sector, for example, is significantly attractive and underinvested today. So there are some pockets like that which are still there. Plus also growth is coming back to every sector. IT services growing double digit, pharma, I told you, growing double digit, metals growing triple digit. So it's been kind of sharp growth in profitability across the board. So please see it from a context that India is coming out of a 5-7 year of weak economic growth or slower profit growth or lower profit growth, and the profit pool of India, which had come down to 3-4% of GDP, should actually rise very substantially in the next few years. And during this period, the GDP is also risen substantially. And now with profit pools rising substantially, the overall profitability of Indian corporates and Indian companies will be much better. Second important point is there is zero or very little leverage in the large companies in India. The top 100 companies are still today at very little levels of loans and borrowings. And whatever growth of borrowings you have seen in the last 5 years has been retail-led in banks. And now I think they will possibly enter into a meaningful investment cycle. I know this disbelief on investment cycle because it has not happened so many times before, but I think government is already leading it by large orderings which are underway. And I think it's a matter of time where a lot of these companies, when they see growth and utilization happening, for example, till a quarter or 2 back, steel was unlikely to do capex. Today, steel seems to be at the forefront of doing capex. That's how rapidly things are changing. So please don't see investment only from one angle, which is clearly today difficult to kind of say how it will get over quickly. But I think there are enough models which suggest that in 3-4 weeks' time, a lot of areas will be much better. The decision making on investment will be way different 3-6 months out, and I think we could well start off into a multi-year growth opportunity in terms of investment cycle or in India. Why I'm just talking about capital investment and growth and this manufacturing is today we prefer manufacturing over consumption generally as a theme. It's not that consumption is not good, but the growth rates for consumption might be lower and manufacturing can start taking up substantial growth activity over the next 3 years to 4 years to 5 years. Now, what are the sources of this? Some of this, they're very apparent on the face of it. Lower interest rates, very strong balance sheets of top 100, 150 corporates, government trust on creating infrastructure as a part of creating employment. Second, the fourth point is capacity utilization, which has been low for a period of time, will improve as an opening up trade kind of happening. In fact, in some cases, there is shortage of capacity as well, like in steel in India. And you're certainly hitting some of this because 8-10 years have been an underinvestment phase in any place in the world and in India. In fact, if steel prices are all-time high globally, all commodity prices are all-time high globally, they will hurt us somewhere. That I'll talk to you a little later. But directionally, all this only indicates that the profits of many businesses in India in the next 2 or 3 years will be way different from what we are putting in numbers. So the companies will see revenue expansion, margin expansion, and profits growing in higher double digits than before. Just to complete the manufacturing piece, the another two important parts, which last time I touched upon because it was the early start of the China plus one strategy with large corporates in US and Europe would want to look forward to. I think that is continuing already in short cycle businesses like textiles and whatever people source, the larger retailers source globally out of India, it is continuing. Chemicals, it is continuing. Pharmaceuticals, it is continuing. And textiles, I mentioned to you. So I think this will spread to a few other sectors fairly quickly is our reading, because everybody wants to diversify, robustify, if I may use the word, the supply chain, and would not want to see the scare of what they have seen in the last 12, 18 months because of the changes which have happened globally. And I think that diversification of supply chain, suppose China does 10 and India is doing 1 today, if China does 9 and India does 2, it is like 100% growth for India. So please don't underestimate the shift and swings which can happen over a 3-5 year period in India due to these. Fourth, obviously the performance-linked incentives would lead to billions of dollars of manufacturing and value addition to be done in India. We are seeing a lot of companies, both foreign and Indian companies, accepting those challenges of growing turnover very, very sharply in the next 3-5 years. And I think the incentives are aligned to create local manufacturing, which will actually be an added push from a point of view when the world is looking at India also as a supplying base. So I think two things are coming together, which in our opinion will create good growth from a manufacturing point of view in India. And that I think is an important theme I want to leave you with. Other important themes are in larger cap businesses. You have seen a lot of consolidation happening. Like, in telecom, there are primarily two companies with most profitability and dominant market shares. In banks, the larger banks have cornered a lot of shares. So you will find the profit margins for a lot of these businesses which you are putting today, based on the weak economic conditions which we have seen in the last 3-4 years, will be very different in the next 3-4 years as pricing power comes back, shortages which are there increase, and as profitability starts improving for a decent amount of a larger number of sectors. See what happened in, say, metals, where the profitability suddenly shot through the roof because of global demand recovery. Some pricing power will also flow through to some other segments, even though some metal price changes might hurt. So I think these are important broader factors that we will have to keep looking at, and not look at India from a point of view of the last 3, 4, 5 years where profits generally have been muted, a very narrow market it has been. And now we are actually talking about a much more broad-based, well-distributed earnings and possibly more sustainable growth opportunity for the country. Now, let me just highlight 3 or 4 top-of-the-mind issues which might still be there in relation to the first point which we discussed on health-related challenges. I think they will be, in a matter of time, contained in the next 1 month or so. And I think a lot of discussion will move to economic activity, how to accelerate, how to restart, or what to do to see that it remains strong and it is not impacted like it was done last year. Other issue which a lot of investors have at the back of the mind is what will happen to India's currency? Will it depreciate sharply because of this? And what implications it can have from a dollar portfolio point of view. If you see, the Indian currency has behaved very strongly and very well in the last several years. There have been some cases of depreciation, but I think it is far more contained than what it used to be in the past. For this, you just have to look at 2-3 numbers which were there, which are at the top of everybody's mind, which is the foreign exchange reserves in India. I think we are way better, way stronger, and possibly in the best ever position in terms of the foreign exchange reserves which are there. And maybe you can say, as a percentage of total net imports, we may be 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times, but I think we have a very decent environment there. Crude and all, though they have risen, they are still way below longer term. You've seen at $130, $80, $90 as well in 2013, 14, 15, those kind of phases. We are much better. In India, we are free pricing petrol and diesel nearly. In India, we charge about 100 rupees, 102 rupees a litre for diesel and for petrol and diesel in India, which is like we are free pricing it. So it's a full reflection is already there in the prices in terms of the rise in cost. And I think the impact of that generally having a problem in terms of domestic cash flow situation or challenges seems to be limited and controlled. In fact, there is a leeway to cut petrol and diesel prices in India if economic activity normalizes. And I think that is one step which will boost growth which in my opinion today is making growth a little more challenged than before. The third, so currency in my opinion is not as big a challenge as being perceived. The shock of 2013 and 14 where you had sharp currency depreciations, I think are no longer there. The Reserve Bank, the government and all are very, very focused to have a more stabler currency environment because it matters from everything point of view. Plus India's strength in terms of their current account and the strength in terms of their forex reserves, which is there, and also the reasonable containment in terms of the inflationary environment in India because of several measures taken over the years should help in seeing that currency depreciation is contained and should not dent material or larger returns for investors. Coming to the other angle, which people say, markets were I remember at that point of time, markets had corrected already when we had spoken. Today, markets have risen from there and are at a higher level than before by 30, 40, 50%. The only difference I would just want to point out is over a 3-year period, the markets have still given you single-digit returns. So Indian markets are no way as expensive as how US or international markets have been because they have given 15% dollar returns for 10, 15 years now. And Indian markets are coming out of a very low base of earnings and have given moderate returns. And hence, the big story for India from a growth point of view actually lies ahead. It doesn't lie. It's not like, we have gone through it. So India has a scope for earning expansion, which is much sharper than what numbers will be putting in. Right? Leave aside the next 2 or 3 months of challenge, which might be because of this. But directionally, over a 3-5 year period, we are in a reasonably good sweet spot from supported by lower base and broader growth, lower interest rates, policy environment and measures which have put in place. Last time I discussed this, plethora of reforms which India had seen. And we have seen that those reforms have been implemented. We have seen the negative effects of some of those, the challenges which come about in any large reforms. And I think we are yet to see all the benefits of that coming through, which makes us optimistic that as India's growth stabilizes and continues to improve, like, how the recovery was there in the last quarter and the quarter before that. Even the results which are being reported by companies for the fourth quarter are extremely robust. In fact, a lot of companies are now seeing upgrades where, 5-7 year period, we never saw companies reporting upgrades versus analyst estimates. So I think the rapid shift in underlying profitability is an important story in India for the next few years because the base is completely low. And the broader economic level and activity in India should start showing, supported by strong export and global growth, which we are seeing everywhere. So I think many things are shifting. Many things are shifting favorably. And I'll also address what 1 or 2 risks which exist, which are always should be there at everybody's mind. But I think directionally, from a point of view of the growth cycle we are in, we see for the growth cycle we are in today, we see only a few selective risks which we want to highlight. But directionally, we see a reasonably good environment for equity markets. So please don't get colored by only one part of the challenge. There is a challenge of healthcare and all that, which I think as we cross the peak cases should get over. And I think we are looking forward to more and improved economic activity as we cross this difficult time in terms of what is happening on the healthcare side in India. Like I said, larger cities like Bombay and all are already crossing the Rubicon, as you might say, from that point of view. Our approach to investing is one point I just want to spend a couple of minutes on because that will answer and explain a lot of changes which have happened in the last 1.5 years in terms of our portfolios. Because when we clearly believed, even last time I remember saying that the next 3-year performance will be very different from the performance of the last 3 years. I also mentioned that a lot of companies in India were available at very cheap or bankruptcy valuations last time when we spoke. I think some pockets of both of these stories remain same and seem to be there for a period of time. Maybe the valuations are not very cheap or not at bankruptcy levels, like, metals last time were available so cheap. Today they are not so cheap, but they are still growing. But I think there are several pockets like utilities and all that which present a good opportunity. So our approach is to focus on investing over indexing. See, if somebody wants to choose an index, you already have an index which is available, right? I mean, our portfolios are really focused on what are the best available 30, 40, 50 ideas for the next 3-4 years. And that allows you to differentiate versus the index when the narrow markets have shifted to broader markets. What you have seen in terms of our portfolios and the performance which you have seen in the last 6-12 months is a reflection of that philosophy of choosing investments and doing investing over investing over indexing, and doing conviction-driven sector and stock allocations across the portfolio. If you look at our portfolio versus what is available in the market or the index, you will find definite focus stands on what will work in the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And we may go right or wrong in some cases, but I think when you get it right, you have an ability to generate material and substantial differentiated returns versus other available options, even in large size 10,000 crore products. Because if you're creating a portfolio, I remember last time, one of the questions used to be that in a large portfolio, it would be difficult to create alpha. But you can see if you create differentiated portfolios, you get those 3-4 months in a year where you are able to really get differentiated returns from the market. And our continuous attempt is to see that we moderate and control risk, as also not let go the ability of the fund or the product to generate alpha over a rolling 2 to 3 year period. And I think given broadening of markets allows us to perform much better in this environment than a narrow market like what it was maybe a couple of years back, or maybe about prior to the last 12 months. I think this is one point which I just want to present because that is how we are approaching. Today, our belief is there are 3, 4, 5 sectors which really count, which I think will be possibly leaders of the next 3-4 years. They might appear a little contra, but I have mentioned this even in the worst of times in the last 6-9 months back. The whole engineering and infra space should come back and come back very strongly. And I think it's starting to happen. Second theme, it's manufacturing over consumption, in my opinion, for at least the next 2 or 3 years because of valuations being higher in consumption versus valuations being reasonably okay in manufacturing, and possibly we are in a multi-year growth opportunity there as it starts off, and capacity utilization improves, capex starts, and everything happens, and profits are very low there. Utilities as a category over other segments because their valuations are way below bankruptcy valuations. Even in India today, you get a lot of large size businesses giving you 7%, 8% dividend yield, and people don't want to own them. And I think that is where a disproportionate differentiated returns is possible. What happened to metals? What happened to pharma? What happened to IT? What happened to some segments of cap goods? I think will accelerate into a few other segments in our opinion. And I think some of these businesses will be the leaders for the next 3-4 years, which is where we are completely focused. And one last point is export-oriented sectors, which were a little bit shadowed because of the weak global growth last 12-18 months, I think should start coming back and supporting a lot of our sectors, which are looking at better capacity utilization and better pricing. So this is the broad construct of where we stand. I think we have differentiated by focusing on a few areas. We are overweight industrials, overweight well-weighted in metals, overweight utilities, overweight large banks, overweight consolidated telecom. So what are we playing here? We are playing consolidation in profits in a lot of large caps, which will lead to better margins in future. We are leading to, we are playing on manufacturing or consumption, like I mentioned. We are playing on strong, sustainable profit sectors like pharma, IT services, and all. Today, some segments might be well valued, so we may be underweight, but we are always open to insurance and all these spaces where we'll find reasonable valuations available. We are not overpaying for growth. We are buying companies at reasonable prices so that the risk is actually inherently lowered by the price you pay in a lot of these businesses. And hence, there is a material, meaningful opportunity to capture returns in all these areas. And that is where I think we would want to present the case that please don't see India through only one lens today, which is being reported in the press and all. Just look at how things might look different in a 6-month window as we get over this current challenge and the crisis. With this, I will leave the floor open for any specific questions in any area you would want me to answer. I'm very happy to take it up. Over to you, Mr. Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sailesh, for bringing out in perspective the entire macroeconomic and the ground level realities that is happening within India, and also for highlighting that what we saw April, May of last year is very much different from what it is. It is much more manageable, and people have realized how to tackle this sort of a situation, and which most state governments and the central government seem to be doing at this point of time. Before I get into the questions, I will just want to quickly kickstart with one question. The government has in this budget had provided a huge amount towards disinvestment as one of the key collecting factors. So where do you think this is going to happen? I'm sure it's too early to ask this question, but do you think they'll be able to achieve that target, especially with LIC and others coming in? And what is your view in terms of the government plans in terms of disinvestment as a policy?
This is one big event. Actually, I should have commented on this in the initial start because we think this will be a game changer from a point of view of how people see a lot of large businesses in India, which are still available at single-digit PE multiples. See, PSU as a space, investors have lost faith in it in the last 5-7 years in India. But the reality is the valuations there are way cheaper, way attractive. And as things normalize, you will find that the value of these assets being realized. For example, in metals, for example, nobody wanted to touch any metal company in the last 3-4 years, right? I mean, today you see that there is nobody who doesn't want to own it. I mean, if you don't own metals, people are worried today. I find people at, even at these valuations and prices rising 6 times higher from what it was just 12 months back, want to own it. That is the shift in investor perceptions which happen. So I view this as a big opportunity. I see larger, good, well-run public sector businesses as a phenomenal opportunity on the back of, like you rightly said, divestment. I think government is extremely serious on divestment. I think all the laws which are needed to be changed, or the regulations which are needed to be amended to allow for large assets to be sold, I think are already being done. And you all know the names have been announced on which assets they are looking at divesting. Yesterday, as we speak, they have even opened the data room and data access to for the sell-off of BPCL. And COVID did delay it, but I think in all probability we will hit a jackpot in terms of divestment in the next 9 to 12 months. And I think this would well be in this financial year for India. And I think even the larger divestments of LIC and all that, there are a lot of guidelines to be met and all. I think all of them have been worked on, and I think it's happening at a pretty rapid pace as we are understanding. So I think we could see substantial shift, and this could well be the turnaround time for public sector businesses, especially good quality businesses in the equity markets.
Thank you. There's a question on interest rates, on not only on the domestic rates, especially since we had the RBI governor talk to us last week and also announced a sort of a stimulus or relief measures for the hospitality sector. So 2 questions.
Yeah.
One is, are you expecting a sort of do we need a stimulus this year compared to what was done last year in terms of apart from whatever has been done? Do you think there would be a stimulus sort of a situation? And secondly, thing is on interest rates. For instance, we had the Treasury Secretary talk about in the US saying that there is a need to raise interest rates, not this year, but hopefully from next year. So given that sort of a situation, when you look at a 2-3 year perspective, how do you think both the global interest rates and the Indian markets, how are they going to pan out in the next 2-3 years from your perspective?
On the 2 questions which you have raised, one is the need for stimulus in India. I think last time there was a complete shutdown. There was just no cash flow to people. And there was so much uncertainty that people didn't want to transact. If you remember, there are a few months where people said, I'll not give you money, which is due to you because I don't know whether I'll get cash flows from my suppliers or my vendors, right, or my customers. So I think all that is not there today because we are living it here. We can see, right? I mean, there's a difference in what we went through then and what we are going through today. So I think there will be a need for some support, which, it is more in terms of how RBI has supported a few healthcare this time around and, a few other sectors. And I think the way, even last time also, if you just look at the data, India came out of the crisis with possibly the least amount of support being given. Right? It was only food. The primarily support was food and RBI support in terms of allowing for moratorium and extension. There were no direct forbearances, with some disproportionate amount of money spent. I think it was very calibrated. Hence, even then it was low, and even now I think it will be much lower than what is being perceived internationally. If you see how US and UK and all have spent on supporting, has been huge, and I think we don't require anywhere near that kind of support to come back. In fact, if you just normalize and maybe in 3 or 4 weeks, you will see a lot of normalization. You will see economic activity picking up because people know now you have to deal it with that open mind rather than being worried about the challenges which we had faced last time around. So I don't think that is an issue. The second point is, and the second point also is tax collections are still very robust. Right? They may slow down a bit for a month or 2, but they are way more robust than they were in the first quarter last year, where GDP declined 25%, tax collections also declined, and a lot of issues came up. Now, the third point which you raised on interest rates is very pertinent, very relevant. This is what we have actually been, everybody has been looking at it as saying that whether it will happen or not. There are people who believe that you don't need to raise interest rates at all. that the more MMT kind of a theory, which it's always good in theory. We don't know how it will pan out, but directionally, clearly, some inflation is returning globally, which will and the too much of excess money which has been flown in because of need of COVID crisis and the support which was needed locally, the kind of liquidity which has been infused and the support which has been infused will slowly be withdrawn, most certainly in the next 1 to 2 years. If it happens in a calibrated manner, and I think nobody is willing to take that risk that, with growth coming back, I think they will start a calibrated unwinding of the whole thing. You may have, and if it's not handled very well, there can be spikes in interest rates. So you need to be open to that fact that this is a scenario with much greater certainty as we grow closer to the event than it was a year back or 2 years back and all. And I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that interest rates will rise. And because it is being built into expectations now and all that, hopefully we manage this transition reasonably okay. Will the initial increases in rates create a disruption for demand? I don't think so. I think it will transition slowly. And I think unless there is completely uncontrolled inflation, right, in larger economies, I think you'll have a reasonably better I would say, movement from the current environment of negative to low interest rates to moderate interest rates levels. And then you would find economic activity possibly able to handle it. But you have to be open to the fact that interest rates over the next 12, 18-month period, based on current conditions which are there and growth coming back in international markets and inflationary trends, can be on an uptrend.
Yeah, now with the work from home culture being now adopted widely, and most of the IT companies and other service related industries are looking at embracing this sort of a model. Two things. One is your view on real estate sector as a whole, especially on the commercial real estate side. Is there going to be a sort of a disruption that we can see in the going forward? And secondly, there is also with this sort of a situation, it is widely expected that the telecom sector also should do well because of the connectivity being now spread over much more households and other places than confined to an office space. So how would you look at this sort of a trend and the long-term impact for these sectors?
Yeah, let me take the second trend, which is absolutely clear. And about telecom, I think it's a consolidated. I don't think any country in the world has two players with so much dominance, or 2.5 players, so they call it, with so much dominance and balance sheets to handle. And I think broadband, you all know it's like roti, kapda, makan, and broadband in India now. So it is like that kind of this thing. Even education and all that is happening. So the need for strong telecom infrastructure and strong leaders there is very high. And I think it's a matter of time where profitability of this sector is way different from what we are seeing. So this plays into the theme of consolidation already happened, pricing yet to improve. And without that, they are very profitable. With pricing changes, they can be extraordinarily profitable over a period of time. So this is a theme which is, in my opinion, possibly a big theme to be played out in the next 1 to 2 years. Coming to your first question on work from home and need for space and infra, I think there are two underlying trends to that. One, there has been a slowdown in economic activity last year, which also led to people giving away some retail space. So that was one factor. And the second factor is there was no growth. Normally, you add about 3%, 5% to office space in a year, or 2% to office space growth in a year. Even that growth was not there last year because people were uncertain. I think with growth coming back, I see this problem today or the perception that work from home will not lead to greater office space creation or better rentals, I think will start fading away. Because I think, if large companies a year back said they will not call back people to work, and now you've seen all announcement that at least 60% of their workforce should be back, 70% should be back. You should work 4 days out of 5 or 3 days out of 5 from, if you have heard a lot of international companies already talking about. I think slowly it will happen that, even in IT services and other areas, you will find a much larger portion of the workforce starting to come back. And also the space, suppose earlier you were keeping about 60 square feet, 100 square feet, or 50, 60 square feet per person, or some number around, right? Or for a particular person working in office spaces. I think that will be expanded for better social distancing, and that will be expanded. So I think the need for office space is temporarily suppressed, but I think grade A, good quality office space will only keep on expanding. The third point is look at how IT business is now accelerated. Today, there is a shortage of IT manpower in India. And there is a complete shift in the last 6-9 months, right? What was initially perceived, even I had initially perceived IT services getting a little bit of challenge because of the challenges in the US. But the way it has shifted is, is like today there is huge demand for manpower, and we are unable to service them. So I think the truth will be somewhere in between. It will not be a complete work from home kind of environment. I think it will be a mix and match. And today we are seeing both work from home and lower economic growth impacting. But I think 6-12 months out, it will be a very different thing. So I'm not so worried on a real estate or a commercial real estate point of view from at least larger, high quality, grade A kind of properties and businesses. Niche, smaller spaces, because smaller businesses have been impacted a lot more. And those who rent smaller, say maybe 2,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet, they might get impacted because they are directly linked to economic activity, and they are service sector businesses which have suffered in the last 12 months. But I think normalization of economic growth should lead to a meaningful comeback in office spaces. Residential has just no challenge today. In fact, with lower interest rates and all that, we have seen perhaps the biggest boom in residential sale in the last 6 months in India than I have seen at least in the last 5-6 years. So I think it's come back materially strongly, and in my opinion, will continue to remain reasonably robust.
I mean, there are a lot of questions which are stock-specific questions. We would not be looking at any stock-specific question at this in this session today. The other, I think, a lot of questions in terms of IT and pharma sector have already seen sharp rallies. So, to what do you think that they would be giving a return which is commensurate with other sectors that would be, like you mentioned, in terms of engineering or manufacturing or utilities? So, should one reduce exposure to IT and the pharma sector and move to the emerging sectors that you were talking in terms of, especially engineering, manufacturing, utilities, etc.?
Yeah. What is interesting in the current market environment is a lot of spaces are showing good growth. So it's unlike earlier markets where only 1 or 2 segments were delivering good growth. So to highlight, say, the pharmaceutical sector, right? What you have seen in the last 10 years in the pharma sector is just a very normal kind of a thing. You'll actually, if you objectively look at what is possible, I don't know whether I mentioned last time around, like, India being if India is perceived as a young country and India is perceived as a country with a lot of young population and stuff like that, India is also ranks the 4th largest country by having 27 crore people over the age of 50 years. And that is a real market for domestic pharmaceutical companies to service their solutions and give disease-solving solutions to people. So it's a large market. Please don't go by 1-year movement of prices. Earnings in pharma sector can double in a 4-year, 5-year period in India, which presents at least an earning-led opportunity for the sector very comfortably. Similar in IT services, the rebound has been sharp, the re-rating has been sharp, but maybe after a little bit of consolidation, you may still find that sector delivering 12-13% growth, maybe a shade lower than pharmaceuticals, but should deliver 12-13% growth given the surge in demand which has come about and the need for people to outsource and need for people to get problems sorted. Imagine every company is wanting to become a company with digital capabilities. And you have, in shorter period, India can only supply this much of manpower. Even if you go searching in US, you will not find people with so much scale needed in terms of supplying it, and no other single country can provide. So directionally, pharma, I think earnings can double in a 4-5 year period very comfortably. It may take a little longer in terms of IT services companies, but they are in a way strong, cash generating, and in a positive environment. So I'm not saying that these sectors are a sell today or whatever. These sectors are actually, in my opinion, reasonably promising, because pharma is coming out of 4-5 difficult years, except for the last 1 year of a rally. If you look at it, a lot of leaders in pharma sector are still at half the prices of what they were at their peak 5 years, 7 years back. So I think the opportunity is far more greater than one re-rating which has happened in the market, is my opinion in these sectors.
And just to complete the sector-specific question cycle, what is your views on the banking and NBFC space? When last year we had a lot of concerns on the NPAs, and now we are seeing many of the private sector banks, especially, and some public sector banks also showing stellar performance in their Q4 results. Do you think that trend will continue, or do you anticipate or expect any issues both in from an NPA perspective or another from a capital raise perspective for these entities?
The good part is when we have entered the second wave of COVID, all these banks were well capitalized. If you remember last time when we had interaction, in a month's time, these companies had raised 50,000 crore rupees, all the top 3-4 banks in India, right? And they are very well capitalized, and they've also added 1 year of profits to their balance sheets. So I think the strength of the balance sheets today, at least for larger private sector banks and leaders in public sector, is very strong. There is just no challenge in terms of capital. And Reserve Bank of India obviously nudged them to do that last year, so that, in case there is a second wave or a big challenge, you are in a much better position. So I think the good part is that is gone. Second is NPAs, they have certainly increased, right? But because of capital raise and all that, they have provided very well. And I think if you look at their balance sheets today and look at their current book values in some of these banks, I think they are well reflecting the reality. Even the current slowdown today, the COVID-2 related challenges, will create some challenges in high-touch businesses where, MFIs, or, where you have to go and collect from people, because collection mechanisms are certainly challenged. But I think in larger banks where salaried employees are there and with reasonable digital access, I think collections, we can migrate over it. We can migrate over it over a next 3-4 month period. And generally the valuations there are still reasonable given the kind of franchises they have created. They have strong deposits generated, strong, very strong liability franchises developed. Select non-banking finance companies can still face stress, but I think we are out of the worst problems we had seen in the COVID one. So I don't think a repeat of that is likely. There'll be some impact, but I think the balance sheets are very strong today.
So I think the next natural question is from a portfolio diversification point of view. What should an investor look at today? How much, if you want to say in terms of large cap, diversified equity, multi-cap, small cap, mid cap, what should be a strategy, and which segments should he be looking at? Of course, SIP is something that we always recommend, but do you think there are some sectors or some areas that deserve a large lump sum investment at this point of time?
Yeah. See, I see it like this. I see it from a point of view of, say, one is, say, market cap distribution generally. See, India's market cap today will be 70-75% large cap and 25% mid and small cap, right? The allocation of an investor seeking, say, higher risk than the market should actually can have a greater proportion of, say, 40% in mid and small cap companies and maybe 60% large cap space. So that is one. If you have achieved that, I think you are very well positioned. I don't think disproportionately large shifts are required, because I think all the three segments have reasonable opportunity, because the fundamental beliefs comes from a fact that there has been a broad basing of earnings everywhere. And you are getting, benefits flowing through a larger cross section of companies than it was there in the last 3-4 years. So this seems to be the construct. The manufacturing as a theme is an important theme. So please play it as a sector or a thematic play, and only do it with a 5-7 year horizon, because that is a more structured play. Like in pharma and all, we always say that please come with a much longer term view of 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and hopefully it is worked despite the 3, 4, 5 difficult years which the sector faced last time around. And I think directionally a similar kind of an approach can be applied to manufacturing and all, because directionally growth opportunities there appear to be selectively very good. Diversified funds like large cap and multi cap do represent a complete opportunity. So I don't think they do capture across some of these segments. And in our funds, we are actually overweight in manufacturing and engineering, overweight in the divestment-led businesses and the opportunity which can come from re-rating of stocks, utilities which are way undervalued. Our construct of the portfolio is roughly about 10-15% cheaper than the market, with a growth rate which is higher than what the index can offer. So it's like buying good companies at reasonable prices and not overpaying for growth. So I think this approach is across our portfolios, which will allow us to navigate this growth cycle in a much better manner over the next few years.
I think a lot of sector-specific questions still keep arising. Two interesting things is we have seen a sharp rally of sugar stocks in the last few weeks. So, do you think agri-based industries would do well, Yes, and also in terms of specialty chemicals, what is your thought
Yeah.
process on both?
Two points to this. General agri inflation has starting to happen globally, and agri-based industries are likely to do better from where they have been. Because if you remember, the big problem when I used to visit Dubai and other places, 2013-14, at the point of time, it was the worst of inflation. If you remember, we used to have 8%, 9% kind of inflation, and underlying CPI hitting even 9, 9, 10, 10%. Both crude, all agri commodities globally were on fire, and we were unable to control and champion. After that, we had a lull of 5-7 years. In fact, last 5-7 years have been one of the weak phases for agri prices. And I think hence we will certainly enter, and we've already entered, as you see, in a lot of areas and a lot of data which is available, that we are already finding acceleration in agri prices. That would mean agri input companies and commodity companies would find would be in a much far, will be able to have much greater share of profits. Like, metal companies have much greater share of profits than consumers of metals today. I think you will find that kind of shift also happening here. Specific to sectors, like you mentioned, sugar, and like you mentioned, the specialty chemicals. I think specialty chemicals has been playing into the theme of people wanting to outsource in a more balanced manner from India and not just from one country. So they are diversifying the sources. So that is allowing for new business to come, and that is allowing for growth to happen. Like I mentioned, even if you look for, say, 100, 200, 500 scientists in India, you can get it. So the ability to scale up is also there in a lot of places. And I think that is what is feeding into the broader demand growth there. Only thing I want to caution that the valuations there are way higher than normal. And if growth disappoints in a few quarters, I think you have to be careful, because a lot of these, some businesses also have 50-60% share coming from non-specialty chemicals, or more commodity chemicals in nature. But broadly, specialized sectors have a long way to go, given that supply chains are globally getting diversified. And if our leaders and good companies do well, I think we have a medium-term journey which is positive.
Thank you. I think this is a more a direct question. Do you think the markets will correct, or is there? I mean, this is on everybody's minds and minds that this is a constant question that keeps coming to us. But is there a correction that we can expect? If so, to what extent? I'm sure it is not. We are not looking at something like what happened last year, but how do you, from a market perspective, looking at the flows that are coming in both from the foreigners and from the FIIs and from the domestic flows and institutions, from an investment manager perspective, what would be your gut feel for the market for 21?
Yeah, see, a normal 5-7% market correction, I think, is completely, it can happen purely for very normal reasons. US market corrects 5-7%, we also follow through, or something happens, we'll also follow through. So those kinds of things are very normal. I don't think anybody can avoid that. And I think, in fact, if those kinds of things happen, it suddenly becomes very, very opportunistically positive for investors. If you look at purely, like I mentioned, our markets appear at this current level of whatever 15,000, 14,500, 15,000 Nifty. But if you look at it over a 3-year period, we were just at 12,000 there, and we are here at 14, 15,000. We are about single-digit returns. So we are not overtly expensive. If you look at FY21 reported numbers and then see, you'll find it we are expensive. But if you analyze the second half of the number and then see, we are okay. We are not some outlandishly expensive, right? And secondly, all our growth is in front of us. So please see, moderate corrections are possible if crude goes up very sharply, or if the corona cases, which are today seemingly having a particular model of tapering off, maybe they get extended by another 1-2 months and create a challenge. You may have some tapering off or normal corrections, but we don't see this as anywhere near what we were in maybe 2007 and 8, or anywhere where we were in terms of, because at that point of time we were trading at extremely different levels of valuations. So normal corrections are possible with global shifts and all that which are happening. And more importantly, I think some sectors will do very well, some sectors will do differently. Maybe a larger number of sectors will do better this time because profit shades are shifting. Like, I'll give you one example. Producers of commodities are today making extraordinary money, versus 2 years back, they were actually bankrupt or closer to bankruptcy or at much lower levels. So these shifts are important. And when you have these shifts, stock prices rise 3 times, 5 times in those sectors. And these are not represented in the index so much. Metals, I used to remember when I should tell you last time that metals would be 2% weight in the index last time, right? And I think likewise, there are a lot of sectors in the index which are say 25% weight total combined, but having a much larger share of economic profit pool in the next 3, 4, 5 years. I think that is where you will find differentiated returns which are possible. So the real focus should be to get that cycle right and not be challenged by a 5-7% correction, which can be very normal, right? And my probability of calling a correction is exactly similar to yours, right? If I get it right, maybe I'll tell you I've done it well, but I think directionally I understand my probability of calling for a normal correction is just similar because, there are too many moving parts to it. But directionally, fundamentally, over 3 years, we are just about okay, maybe single digit kind of growth we have seen in indices. And outlook for the next 3-4 years looks reasonably much better given the current conditions with global growth being back and things like that. And reforms pain already in the numbers. Our base of numbers is very low. Things should get better.
Before I call upon Mr. Shamsuddin to give us a formal vote of thanks, let me take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Sailesh, for the wonderful session and for I think the principal theme is stay invested and look for opportunities this year, and markets are going to deliver a reasonable amount of returns in the next 2-3 year phase. And like you rightly mentioned, from a 3-4 year perspective, we are still not that far away, and we are also seeing the EPS, the earnings of companies are much better than what it used to be compared to 18 or 19 financial years, 18 and 19 levels. With all this in the backdrop and for the views that you have given today, I thank you on behalf of Burjeel Geojit Financial Services, our clients and clients who have joined from Muscat and Kuwait for this session. We had more than close to 300 plus participants in the webinar, and your views have only reinforced the points that we also tell our clients in terms of the markets and the sort of expectations that they can have going forward. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Sailesh Ban, and I now request Mr. Shamsuddin, director of our company, to say a few words as a vote of thanks. Mr.
Thank
Shamsuddin.
you very much, Mr. Krishnan. Thank you.
Mr. Shamsuddin, can you? Hello? I think I think he has some audio issues. So on behalf of, I just want to say again, thank you once again for being part of this session, and we will come back to investors frequently during this period to reinforce the developments and the conditions that are happening in India today, and keep them abreast of the developments from an investment perspective. Thank you once again, Deepak, for organizing this seminar, and Mr. Sailesh for being with us today. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining.
In the last 25 years, the returns on various financial asset classes like bank deposit, gold, and real estate have multiplied several times. But there are a few select investments in the Indian capital markets that have had the potential to appreciate exponentially over 100 times. If you had known this at the right time, you would have taken the right investment decision. Which is precisely why you need an expert's validated advice when it comes to investing. Welcome to Burjeel, one of the few SCA-approved financial intermediaries in UAE. We are wealth builders, guiding customers since 2001. We have serviced over thousands of them till date, and today we cater to large segments across investor groups. This speaks about our enormous goodwill and their undiluted trust. And we have earned that trust by telling, not selling. We educate you on the investment opportunities that are ideal for you. We then help you make an informed decision, impartial and unbiased, keeping your long-term goals in mind. And with us, everything is long-term, be it commitment, relationships, or success. We offer comprehensive insights across a wide range of products through a holistic approach. We ask you the most important questions, the answers to which will help you focus on your investment objectives. For example, you work for over 30 years. Are you saving enough for the next 30 years? For life goals like children's education, your daughter's wedding, or your retirement. Think about it. You work hard to earn your money. Does your money work hard enough for you? Burjeel, let's build your future. Come, let's talk.